Hello everyone, Type the 101 here. Today I'm going to do a video on how Space Godzilla could be the next monsterverse villain. Now, there's been lots of videos. Some people think it could be, some people think it shouldn't be, right? Here's some reasons how it could be Space Godzilla, or let's say it is Space Godzilla, right? Now, if we're going to go for a thing like he's just coming to Earth, right? Or let's go for this story, right? Now, there was a legend with the Iwi that a Godzilla absorbed a star and became evil with power. Now, just imagine something like this, where one of Godzilla's species had maybe, let's say, absorbed so much of the Hollow Earth energy that it didn't necessarily turn him into a monster. Like, crystal formations were growing. You know, it's probably pretty painful just having these things growing out of your shoulders or back and everything, and he turned into Space Godzilla as this monster began to fight the Godzillas and the Kongs, wiping out everything in the Hollow Earth. And this is why parts of the Hollow Earth, like if you look at the Hollow Earth, right, some parts of it are relatively barren. Like certain parts are just rocks and nothing but energy. This could be because of Space Godzilla wiping out big chunks of the creatures and why they're so low in the Kongs and Godzilla species. And as this is happening, maybe somehow the Kongs and the Godzillas work together, like if you see the painting of fighting this winged Godzilla. Now, Space Godzilla doesn't have wings in the traditional Heisei design. But if you do think about it, right? If the Iwi are talking amongst each other, use sign language, however, and they're pretty much just like, oh, there was this winged Godzilla. People generations later on, if they're hearing myths about this, may write or just paint a mural of something like this. And if it's like a winged Godzilla, or not even saying a winged Godzilla, just saying a flying Godzilla, then it's possible that it could be a flying Godzilla. And that's why the painting has wings and it's coming from space. Most likely. Now, it's possible that Space Godzilla never originally came from Earth, maybe. Or maybe it's just a myth of like how he became this way, right? And how like he became this powerful. He absorbed the star. Maybe it was trying to absorb some energy from the sun. And as the sun maybe blinked out one day, all of a sudden he came in and made, so they were like he absorbed the energy from the sun or a star or something like that. And, some other things, right? Let's say he just comes from Earth, right? Or just comes from space and he attacks. He's attacking and he's fighting. Most likely the Kong species and the Godzilla are working together to keep Space Godzilla out of the Hollow Earth, because maybe he came there to absorb the Hollow Earth energy. It would be so crazy just see like all the Kongs try to jump Space Godzilla like with their axes and throwing things, and Godzilla's using their atomic breath, and Space Godzilla blocks all of this with his shield or something like that. But right after this, right, let's say he retreats, right? They beat him, maybe they destroy shoulder crystals, and this hurts him, and he decides to retreat back into space. Let's say Ghidorah's Alpha Call, as Space Godzilla's just somewhere out floating in space, awakens him. And this is enough to, make Space Godzilla come back to Earth. It's awakened him, and now he's even more powerful. Ghidorah's Alpha Call has went all the way out in space, awakened him, and now through the events of Godzilla vs. Kong, Mechagodzilla, all of that, he's coming towards Earth. And as he makes his way towards Earth, now he has to deal with just Godzilla and Kong. He doesn't have to deal with multiple Kongs or multiple Godzillas, just one of each. And Space Godzilla probably will be pretty easy to deal with if he dealt with the other Titans. So what could he have, like, abilities and, like, what they probably would give him? Well, most likely he'll probably keep most of his abilities. I think the shoulder crystals are one thing that most likely, like, 100% likely they're going to use CGI. So the shoulder crystals probably be a little irritating because most likely they're gonna want Space Godzilla to at least get in some melee confrontation with Godzilla or Kong or something, right? To prove like he's better than Godzilla, or at least, something that Godzilla's going to need help with. So definitely, I think that Space Godzilla would definitely probably have like his crystals on his shoulder would probably be smaller. His arms would probably be smaller, or probably around the same length as Godzilla. His tail would probably stay the same. His design would look a little bit more like Legendary's. His back crystals would probably be more sharp and jagged. Not exactly like Godzilla's. Not exactly like they were in the Heisei era. His face would probably look a little different, though. It may look somewhat the same as skin tone. I think they would probably keep that the same. His origin might change a little bit. Like, if you're going with my version, he might relatively still be, like, the same. Or, different. Because he would just come from space. He wouldn't be, like, something... Because I believe in Heisei era, they say he was made from, like, Mothra, cells mixed with, like, Biolantes, as well as, as well as King Ghidorah's, I believe. No, not King Ghidorah's. It was Godzilla's, Biolantes, and Mothra's all combined, and all of this went into a black hole, making Space Godzilla. Yeah, so definitely that will be a crazy origin. And another thing, right, with Space Godzilla, he's sinister. Like, if you look at the Heisei era, he captured baby Godzilla. Like, after defeating Godzilla, or, he comes and goes straight towards baby Godzilla and doesn't kill him, because he literally was standing over top of baby Godzilla. He could have killed him if he wanted to, but he didn't. And when Heisei Godzilla came and started to fight him, he let Heisei Godzilla, come. He waited for him to come, and as this fight started, he easily overpowered him, took his son, and put him in a crystal chamber to where he couldn't get out, causing Heisei Godzilla to chase him down. As he flew to a nearby city, it began to charge up with energy, getting more and more powerful. As Godzilla finally arrived, him and Godzilla fought. He wanted to antagonize Godzilla. He wanted him to make him suffer. He wanted to just anger him and wanted, this fight to happen. Space Godzilla was like, this fight will be legendary. And then, Mogira comes in, and then he gets jumped. And then they kill him. But definitely, Space Godzilla would definitely be a pretty good foe to face. Though one thing that would be interesting, right, is how exactly they would do it, right, in the MonsterVerse movies. Because Ghidorah's origin, he came from space. Godzilla's, or some Godzilla, trapped him. Godzilla, and, trapped him in Antarctica. Then we see with the Mutos, after the Muto Prime killed Godzilla, one of Godzilla's species members, harboring her eggs inside of the Godzilla. The two Mutos hatched. Godzilla awoke and had to kill them to restore balance. Then he ended up having to fight Muto Prime after she sensed that the two Mutos had died, and now she was the last to bring the Muto species back to their former glory. Now, as she fought Godzilla killed her, Godzilla killed her. And then we have the events of 2019, Ghidorah rose, etc., etc. Now with the Kongs, there was an ancient war between them. We don't exactly know how this war started, which I might do a video on how the war started and would the war really be fair in between the Godzillas and the Kong's abilities. Like, would it really be fair? So, this is my view of Space Godzilla. Now, Space Godzilla will probably fit in as an outlier if they, just have him come from space. So, my origin, he comes from, Ghidorah's Alpha Roar has awakened Space Godzilla somewhere out in space. Now, he has come to this planet to, just to see what's going on, and probably senses the Hollow Earth energy, and now Godzilla and Kong now have to defend the Hollow Earth, because now we know Kong's living in a Hollow Earth. So most likely what's going to happen is Godzilla's going to fight Space Godzilla. he's gonna lose, right? Maybe he loses, or Space Godzilla kind of just defeats him, throws him to the side. Just doesn't want. He just pushes him out the way and keeps on going. Godzilla maybe kind of Space Godzilla gets away, gets back up and roars at him before going back into the ocean, following Space Godzilla. As Space Godzilla goes down in the Hollow Earth, maybe we see, kind of like Godzilla go into like this, go into the water, and man, Space Godzilla goes somewhere into the Hollow Earth, and that's when all of a sudden Space Godzilla maybe stumbles across Kong, and it's just like, Kong is really defending his home from Space Godzilla. And as it seems like maybe like he defeats Kong, but Kong, he gets back up and is, even though Space Godzilla just beat him, he still is not about to give up. And he just like the fight starts again. Maybe Kong is actually putting up a really, really good fight against Space Godzilla. Eventually, Space Godzilla starts using his telekinesis and just starts literally wiping the floor with Kong, maybe throwing things at Kong from a distance, flying into the air. Eventually, maybe Kong's defeated, and now maybe when it seems like all hope is lost, Godzilla enters the Hollow Earth, and Space Godzilla senses this presence as all of a sudden he's fired or hit by Godzilla's atomic breath, pushing him away from Kong. And that this allows Kong to get up, and Godzilla and Kong, have to work together against Space Godzilla. And this is a fight that really, like, they're going to be trying, but the fact that Space Godzilla can fly and he's not purely melee, but the fact that both of them are, at full power, no weaknesses, they haven't really fought much today, so that way they don't have to worry about the energy depletion. They just have to worry about facing him, and it doesn't seem like they can find any outright weaknesses in Space Godzilla. Maybe he outright defeats both of them because maybe they weren't working together, right? Like maybe they were just attacking one by one instead of attacking together. Like Godzilla just let Kong attack, and Kong got whooped, then Godzilla attacked, and they're not working together as a team. And this allows Space Godzilla to easily just overpower them and beat them. And as he gets to the Hollow Earth, maybe he absorbs the Hollow Earth energy, or tries to, and maybe something happens where, he gets supercharged, and, they have to fight him, and they're just getting mollywopped. Now they realize they have to work together. But even though they're working together, they still just can't stop him. As he makes it out of the Hollow Earth onto, some city or something, it just starts the total destruction, as Godzilla has to call upon help from other Titans, perhaps, and as now he has, as Space Godzilla's just making crystal formations everywhere, siphoning energy out of all the buildings, its structure is getting more and more powerful. Godzilla and all the Titans now have to rally together against Space Godzilla. As Space Godzilla fights them, eventually he's holding his own. He kills the lesser Titans. He kills the lesser Titans first. Like, he maybe kills Skilla by, like, stabbing her through, like, a crystal, or crushing her, or ripping her apart with his telekinesis. Rodan, he pretty much easily handles with his tail, or, just biting him. He's able to handle Rodan. But He-Man is a little bit more of a problem, but he still handles him. Stuff like most of these Titans really just not strong enough to hold him down, but Godzilla and Kong are the two that are able to put up a really good fight against him, and maybe eventually they both find a way. Maybe Kong, fights Space Godzilla, and maybe Godzilla hits one of his shoulder crystals. Kong and Godzilla both realize that this is one of his weak points, and the Space Godzilla begins to roar in pain, and the crystal starts to, like, fritz. Space Godzilla then uses telekinesis to maybe throw Godzilla or push Kong away. As Kong tries to hit him, Space Godzilla then uses telekinesis to like stop Kong's axe in midair, pull it out of his hand and then stab him with his tail or smack him away. But Godzilla then, starts to get his hits and punching Space Godzilla, just hitting him with everything he got. But even this really just doesn't do much. Space Godzilla, any damage he does take, easily regenerates. And then that's when his crystal on his shoulder starts to regen as well. Space Godzilla has beaten most of the Titans, but, there still is hope as the humans start to join in as well, hitting Space Godzilla, but most of the missiles do little to no damage. Even though they're upgraded at this point to, penetrate Titan hides and do a lot more damage against any attacking Titans that Godzilla maybe can't take care of immediately. As Godzilla is fighting these Titans, perhaps maybe Godzilla gets like stabbed with the chest by one of the crystals. Now it's not like a big crystal, but it's like a small one stabbs him, and Godzilla is like knocked off his feet. Kong and Space Godzilla start actually going in hand-to-hand combat, or at least Kong just starts swinging his axe, and Space Godzilla's just kind of bobbing and weaving, dodging these attacks, and eventually maybe blast Kong. Kong's left burnt as Space Godzilla towers over them and just lets out a victorious roar. But as, Space Godzilla is focusing on them, Godzilla is able to blast another one of his shoulder crystals. Space Godzilla roars and turns to Godzilla. Godzilla manages to get up, pulling the crystal out of his chest, and it charges up his atomic breath, and Space Godzilla and him do a beam clash. And as the two are going back and forth, eventually Space Godzilla blasts and Godzilla, full power, but this time, instead of the Mechagodzilla situation where he gets blasted back, this time he actually ducks the attack, dodging it before running forward, hitting Space Godzilla in his midsection. Space Godzilla grabs him by his throat and lifts him up, so now the two are face to face. Godzilla charges up his atomic breath, but Space Godzilla, kind of a little piece of his shield, raises up on the side of his head where Godzilla's aiming, and this hits the shield, and the shield kind of deflects it to the side. But that's when Space Godzilla begins to laugh. But then we see from Godzilla's point of view, as his eyes glance as he's like shooting his breath, and then he stops and shoots again, but this time at Kong's axe. As Space Godzilla turns, all of a sudden Kong jams the axe into one of the crystals, causing it to explode. As Space Godzilla falls to the ground. Now, Godzilla fires his atomic breath, knocking Space Godzilla back. Rodan lunges forward, leaping on the Space Godzilla, and fire comes from its wings as it hits down on, him. That's when we see Tiamat as, she lunges out of the water and wraps herself around Space Godzilla, biting into his neck, and Space Godzilla roars. Godzilla, with his one good tail whip, hits Space Godzilla, knocking him to the ground. Space Godzilla slowly gets up as all the Titans are around him. As it seems like, they're about to kill Space Godzilla, he, just shoots up and flies off into space. And, he just leaves as all of them let out a roar in their victory. And, yeah, somehow a situation I would see happen. Something like this I could definitely see happening. Maybe not exactly like it, but, it's one situation I could definitely see happening. And it's the 101 here. This is my scenario or my version of maybe how Space Godzilla could be in the next MonsterVerse film, and why he could fit, and why it does kind of make sense he might be teased as this next villain. But, yeah, the 101 here, and I guess signing out. Goodbye.